Okay, so today we're going to talk about writing linear equations, and we're going to start with writing linear equations given a graph. So there are two steps to writing a linear equation given a graph. Step one is going to be to identify the slope and the y-intercept. So we're going to fill in those blanks with the two words slope and y-intercept. So first one, identify the slope and y-intercept. All right, and then this step two is just to take those things and then write this equation in slope-intercept form. So we're going to plug in our slope and our y-intercept into slope-intercept form. So slope-intercept form is y equals mx plus b. So remember that m is your slope, so I'm going to identify that here. So our slope is going to be m, and our y-intercept is always the B, the beginning. Okay. All right, so looking at the examples, then we have number one, it just gave us a blank for M, it gave us a blank for B, and then it asked us for the equation. So I always start with the y-intercept because that to me is the easiest point to find. The y-intercept again is where the line crosses the y-axis, so that is this point right here. So that ordered pair, I'm going to write it on the graph, is going to be 0, negative 3. X is 0 because you haven't moved left or right, but then you count down 1, 2, 3, so negative 3. So our y-intercept, or our b value, is 0, negative 3. If you write it as an ordered pair, you could just put negative 3, but I do think it's important that you practice writing it as an ordered pair. All right, and then our slope, remember from a graph, to find slope, we do rise over run. So if I'm rising and running from this point right here, my y-intercept, to this point right here, which happens to be my x-intercept, you count from here. I'm going to go up 3, so that's a positive 3 for rise. And then I go right 1, so that's a run of 1. So 3 divided by 1, it just would simplify to 3. So our slope here would be 3. Just in case you maybe wanted to go the opposite direction, you could have started at this point right here and gone down. So I would have gone down 3, which would have made that a negative 3. So in that case, my rise would have been negative 3. And then I would go left 1, so that would be negative 1. And hopefully you remember that a negative divided by negative would just simplify to a positive. So either way, this is going to simplify to positive 3. So just don't think that because I went up and right, that's the only way to go. You could also go down and left. The last thing I always ask students to just check is if my slope is 3, then from this point I should be able to do this process all over again. I should be able to go up 3, right 1. So I'm going to go up 1, 2, 3, right 1, and I should still be on the line. So up 3, right 1, that point right there is still on the line. Okay. All right, so then when I'm writing the equation, all I'm doing is I'm plugging in my m and I'm plugging in my b value into y equals mx plus b. So again, we're plugging into y equals mx plus b. So my equation is going to be y equals, my m was 3, this 3 right here, so 3x. And then it's usually plus b. But because our b is negative, we're just going to write minus 3. You could put plus, right here, you could put plus negative 3, but I just trying to never put double signs. Okay. One step farther that you could go is you could then graph this in your calculator and just confirm that it does match this line. So we might do that here in just a minute. All right, so let's look at number 2. So same process. We're trying to find m and b. I personally always start with b. I like to call that the beginning, the y-intercept. So that y-intercept is 0, 2. So I'm going to write it here, 0, 2. All right, and then my slope, I'm going to do rise over run. So rise over run. So if I start at this point at my y-intercept, I'm going to go down 3. So that's going to be a negative 3. And then I'm going to run to the right 2. So that's a positive 2 to the right. So down 1, 2, 3, right 1, 2. That doesn't simplify, so my slope is just -3/2, or -3 divided by 2. We say over, but over is not really a math word. So -3/2 or -3 divided by 2. We definitely want to leave this as a fraction. A lot of students will want to change that to a decimal, and when you do that, then you don't know how to rise and run anymore. So we want to leave it as a fraction, so that way I know I can rise -3, run +2. So I could do that again. Rise -3 would mean go down 3, right 2 would put me at that point right there still on the line. Okay. All right, so as I'm writing it as an equation, again, it's in y equals mx plus b form. It's going to be y equals, my m was -3/2, so -3/2 x plus b. This time my b is positive, so I'm just going to put +2. Again, if my b was negative, I could just put minus. All right, so I'll show you really quickly how you could check this in your calculator. So if I have my calculator open over here, scroll up. I'm going to add a graph page, so I'm going to do a new document, add a graph. You can leave this as f of x. Remember that y and f of x are the same thing, so that is really important. This is the same thing as saying f of x equals -3/2 x plus 2. So really important that you know that y and f of x are the same thing. If you wanted to delete it and change it to y equals, you can, but you don't need to. So I would do control divide, -3/2 x plus 2. And then I graph it, and I would just check to see, do we agree that that looks like it? If you weren't really sure, you wanted to be certain, remember that you can trace. So menu, trace, graph trace. So it says our y-intercept is 0, 2. If I scroll off of this on my graph and then I go back, like it even highlights, that yellow box pops up and tells me y-intercept. There it is. So then I could find another point. So I know that it went through the point 2, -1. So I could just push 2. It will automatically jump to 2, 2, -1. There that point is. So I should be able to find this point also. So that point is 1, 2, 3, 4, -1, 2, 3, 4. So go to 4. Enter 4, -4. There it is. So just confirming that my answer here is correct. Your calculator tells you a lot of information, so you need to be comfortable using that. All right, so let's go back to the examples. We'll do a couple more. So number 3 has a y-intercept marked for us right here. So just like the last one, that y-intercept is 0, 2. So 0, 2. So they quit writing the blank for me for M and B. So I'm going to make my own blank. That's really important that you can do that. So just know that you need those pieces, but they might not always give you the blanks for it. So our y-intercept is 0, 2. Slope, we're going to do rise over run. So if I start at this y-intercept that they gave me right here, I'm going to rise downward. So that's a -2. So my rise is -2. And then I'm going to go left also. So that would be -1, 2, 3, 4, 5. -5. So -2 divided by -5 right here. A negative divided by a negative cancels. Right? It makes a positive. So my slope is just going to be 2/5. If you weren't sure what happens with that, don't feel bad about, just use your calculator. There's nothing wrong with using your calculator to check that. So if I just go to the scratch pad real quick, -2 divided by -5, enter, there my calculator will simplify it for me. So even if you do it without a calculator, just check it. Okay? So our slope, or our M, is 2/5. So I'm going to add that over here. All right, so now I'm writing my equation in y equals mx plus b form. That's slope-intercept form. So it's going to be y equals, our m was 2/5, so 2/5 x plus b would be +2. So m here, 2/5 plus b was 2. All right, we're going to skip to number 6. So number 6, same thing. We need an m and a B, and I'm going to go ahead and draw those blanks again. So my B this time, my y-intercept is here below the origin, so that's going to be 0, comma, -2. So 0, -2 is my y-intercept. All right, from there, I'm going to go up 2, that's my rise, so my rise is going to be 2. My run is going to be to the left, so that's -1, 2, 3, so -3. So my run is -3. So again, if you don't know, I would definitely use your calculator to check that. That does not simplify. So 2 divided by -3 is just -2/3. One common misconception is that negative has to go with a 3. It does not matter. So 2 divided by -3 is the same exact thing as -2 divided by 3. So if the negative was on the top, those are still the same answer. The other way you might see it is the negative just out front, and then the fraction. So the negative is out in front, not really attached to either the top, the numerator, or the denominator, but all three of those are the same answer. So it doesn't really matter where you put the negative as long as you only put one negative. So either in the denominator, in the numerator, or out front. Those are all the same answer. So my slope is -2/3. I agree with that my slope is negative. So that's really important. If I get a negative slope, my line should be negative. If I get a positive slope, my line should be positive. All right, so now I'm going to put it into the equation. So in y equals mx plus b, I have y equals our m, or slope, was -2/3 x plus b. Again, our b here is -2, so instead of putting plus -2, I'm just going to put -2. Adding a negative is the same thing as subtracting. All right, so I'm going to let you finish that up, and I guess let me know if you have any questions.